has been raining without end for 37 days. Only Holinka can save us now. Hi, I'm Hazel, and today is Thursday, March 9th. Kitty wants to know, what's so special about Thursday, March 9th? Well, Kitty, on 11 a.m. on Thursday, March 9th, or in 24 minutes, Brian Holinka is doing a Q&A on twitch.tv about WoW PvP. And for whatever reason, I'm like really excited about this. Normally with the Q&As, I usually just like throw them up on my monitor while I'm working, and then I watch like the first half of it, and then I get busy, so I just like mute it, and then I realize it's over, and then I go to MMO Champion, and then I read the notes. Holinka has promised, he tweeted, spoiler, 2017 is gonna be great for WoW Esports, or something to that effect. And I'm dying for good news, so I figured I'm gonna have like a Super Bowl party, except less exciting. So basically I was like, let's have a Super Bowl party for the Holinka Q&A, and then I realized all my friends are on the internet. So instead, I was gonna do it by myself, so that's why I'm here in my living room. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna get up early, I'm gonna make snacks, and then I realized that 11 o'clock is like morning and I'm kind of running out of time, so I figured let's make some tea. So let's go make ourselves a nice pot of tea, and we'll set up a little viewing party. Hey, look how ready to go we are.
So transition cowboy.
Okay, so this is my tea station. These are my 2 tea kettles because I have a problem. This is my tea cupboard. I'm gonna do a full tea cupboard, tour at one point, but I need more tea first, because obviously I don't have enough tea. So I figure we're gonna do some chai tea. Obviously we need the Murloc mug. So I'm using an absurdly generous amount of chai tea here. Sometimes I skimp out on it, but you know, it's an exciting day. This is no day for weak tea. What's up, buddy? Are you gonna watch it with me? Are you gonna watch Holinka with me? We're gonna heat up the milk to make it frothy, so we're gonna throw this guy in the microwave. I'm not convinced that my Murloc is microwave safe, but I'm also not convinced that he's not. So, good luck, buddy.
So transition cowboy.
What do we want today? Meow. So cute. Meow. Meow. WoW Esports. Save us, Holinka. Please. So I watched the whole stream. They went over a lot of stuff, so let's get right into it. First up, they were talking about PvP gear. A lot of people have been very concerned about the RNG-ness of obtaining PvP gear in Legion so far. So in 7.2, you were going to be able to use the Obliterum Forge to exchange unwanted PvP gear for PvP gear in slots that you want. So basically, if you get an item that you don't need, you'll be able to take it to the Obliterum Forge and turn it into a token, which you can then use to buy gear for a certain slot. So I take my neck that I don't need, I go get a token, and then if I really need bracers, I buy a bracer item with that. Now those items can randomly upgrade, so maybe I get okay bracers, maybe I get super crazy bracers, maybe I get super crazy with the socket bracers, maybe I get legendary bracers. Like there's a big RNG component there, so that's kind of the solution to keeping gear still be exciting while being able to target slots that you're really hurting for. Additionally, they're adding bonus rolls to PvP gear, like the weekly thing at the end of the week, the rated weekly quest. So right now, at the end of 10 rated wins in 2s, 3s, and probably RPGs, I don't know, you get a piece of gear with the item level based on the highest rating you achieved last week. So you're now going to be able to, in 7.2 presumably, bonus roll on that particular rated quest. So when you get that item, you'll be able to use a bonus roll coin, if you have one, to try for another piece of loot. Presumably it's either going to give you another piece of loot or some artifact power like it does in raid. Next question they dealt with was PvP mounts being character specific versus account wide. This is something that we already knew, but they went ahead and confirmed that Glad mounts are going to continue to be character specific, but Vicious and Prestigious mounts will be account wide. I don't know, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear them put a date on that. That's got to be either in 7.2 or in the next season, right? It's got to be one of those two things. They talked about experience from PvP, so people that like to level with PvP are finding that they don't get enough experience from it, and it's very slow. So in patch 7.2, experience rewards from PvP are going to be increased, so that it is viable to level with PvP. They don't want to make it optimal, they don't want it to be the best way to do it, but they do want to make it feel like you're not wasting your time PvPing below level caps, so that's going to be that.
Back to talking about gear a little bit, as far as gaining the transmog look of a certain season set. After a season ends, you'll be able to buy the previous season's elite gear if you reach 2k rating during that previous season. Anyways, for elite gear, that's how it's going to work. They did say that that's not a permanent solution. They may come up with a more elegant way of doing that, but for now, that's what they're going to do. People were asking about templates in duels. So WoW's had a long history of a dueling community. There used to be a bunch of people just like hanging out in front of Stormwind, hanging out in front of Orgrimmar, dueling for days, and you can't really do that anymore because people's legendaries and trinkets and whatever, like, templates are not in effect. And PvP templates are so different from standard setups now that dueling is just so unbalanced that nobody wants to do it. So they're looking at solutions for that. They're aware of that problem. Originally, they weren't sure if they wanted to apply templates to duels because they were worried about the guy that got his legendary that really wants to duel people and blow them up with it, I guess. But they have decided they do eventually want to find a way to activate templates during duels, but they need to be very careful and do it in a way that's not exploitable. The example that they gave is once, like, say 2 players are trying to beat a very difficult boss they shouldn't be able to do, maybe they duel each other, all of a sudden their templates activate, their honor talents are in effect, they have a bunch of abilities and maybe stats that might be more optimal for that situation. They basically just want to prevent people from exploiting it, so they want to make that happen eventually. They don't know when, they don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but it is sort of on the menu. 1v1 war games are an idea that they like, but they do say it's not technically easy to put in just because of the way the war game tech works. So it's something they're looking at, but they don't have a solution right now. Something that they talked about a little bit here and then in the later section was sort of the concept of a PvP hangout area, like an area, maybe it's instanced, maybe it's not, but a PvP hangout area where templates could be active, both so people can like go and they hang out and they duel each other, and also so that people can do testing, because a lot of people that are trying to do like PvP theory crafting, the only way that you can get accurate information on how much and what your spells actually do is within an instanced environment. So they're talking about like a PvP hangout, like a place that you can go to socialize with other PvPers, to test how your abilities are working, like your healing numbers, for example, potentially to duel with people. That's not an officially announced feature, that's just a concept at this stage. If I had to guess, I would say that's a good bet for a future expansion. I think that's a good expansion selling feature. It's probably not going to make it into a Legion patch, but you never know. Next thing they talked about was solo queue. He talked about this for a very long time, so credit to him. They said they didn't want to say yes or no. They think it's a good idea, but because of the difficulties in implementing something like that, they can't say yes or no. The big difference they talked about, the big difference between WoW and other competitive PvP games where you have this solo queue, things like Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch and, you know, other games like League and whatever, is in all of those games, you just get 6 people or however many people of the same sort of MMR, and then they choose their roles. Whereas in WoW, you have people in individual classes, and you need to get 2 DPS and a healer for 3s, for example, or in an RBG, maybe 7 DPS and 3 healers. And not only does that slow down the queue times, but apparently, and they have access to this number, so it has to be true, apparently there's about 4 DPS to every 1 healer active in rated PvP right now. So for DPS specifically, the queues would be even longer because they're waiting for, you know, too many DPS and not enough healers. So they talked about ways that they can improve that. It's definitely not an insurmountable problem. They talked about adding incentives for people to do rated arena healing so that they have more people in the system, and queues like that would be better. They also brought up other issues with the system, things like comp, for example. Maybe you get into a rated solo queue and it sticks you in a really weird garbage comp, and the other person gets matched up with Mistweaver Turbo. All of a sudden you feel like you didn't deserve to lose that rating because that's not your fault. They're aware of a lot of issues with it. They like the idea. It's something that I think they want to do, but they need to overcome those issues in a way that makes sense and that doesn't break anything and doesn't make too many people too upset. So I don't think we should count on solo queue coming anytime soon, but it's also not completely off the table. Next thing they talked about was title cutoffs. So, as many of you may remember, we had a fairly, I don't want to say catastrophic, but it was pretty hilarious how badly they botched the Legion Season 1 title handouts. And now, of course, ever since then, and ever since they really solidified the Alliance versus Horde individual title shebang bong thing, fan sites, things like ArenaMate and Arena Tracker that used to be able to fairly accurately give you title ranges no longer do so. So they talked about, the question was whether or not Blizzard is going to be able to provide those cutoffs, like for example on their website or in the game. And they said they no longer see value in withholding that information. A lot of people had a theory floating around that Blizzard was not going to tell us what the cutoffs are because they want people to continue to queue until the end of the season. They don't want people to reach what they feel is safe glad or safe challenger, whatever, and then stop queuing. They want people to continue to be active, so they'd be withholding that information. They basically debunked that theory by saying they don't feel that they need to withhold it. They're fine with telling people what those cutoffs are, and they just need to find a way to do it that makes sense. So what they're going to do for this season, like Legion Season 2, which is actually, they announced the ending of that today as well. So they're going to, probably about a week or so before the actual season ends, so most likely a week from now, because notice is usually 2 weeks, they're going to announce the cutoff range. So obviously they can't announce the exact cutoffs before the end of the season because those things change as people queue. But they're going to announce like a basic range, and they're going to really try and emphasize that this is a range and is not guaranteed and is not necessarily going to be accurate because it does change. But they're going to announce a title cutoff range officially through a blue post or the website or whatever a week before the season ends, and then after the season has officially ended, they're going to post the exact numbers, so you'll be able to look at those numbers and go, cool, I got my rival, or darn, there's always next season. So that's their plan for this season and potentially next season. They do eventually want to find a more smoother and elegant solution for potentially either displaying that information in-game, but that's what we're working with for now. So that's actually really good news. That's something I didn't expect, them being more transparent with title cutoffs, so that's kind of good to hear. They talked quite a bit about class stacking in RPGs. There was a couple different questions asking what their plan is for that. Apparently Shadow Priest and Moonkin stacking in RPGs has been quite problematic lately. They talked a lot about it. The gist of it is that they acknowledge it's an issue, but they think that trying to balance around it is more damaging, and they haven't really hit on a good solution for that. We talked a little bit about tanks in PvP. They really can't make everyone happy with this one. The gist of what they said is that they're working on iterating on tank specs to bring them where they want to be. Their end dream, the Blizzard dev fantasy, if you will, of tanks is having them as a fairly sturdy, not super squishy, lower DPS specs, so doing significantly less damage than a DPS, but having that sturdiness and having some utility and harassment abilities to make it an interesting dynamic. So you're not always going to see them in every single match. It's not going to be like a necessary part of the team, but it's an option that people can play with if that's their thing. That's how they feel about tanks in PvP. They acknowledge that they're not there yet, but that's where they eventually want to head. So that's that. They are also looking at changes to the skirmish system to solve the 2v3 issue, something like dungeons have, where you have to click accept in order for the instance to actually be created, and you actually have to wait for everybody to be ready. But I think that's a great idea. Nobody really likes being stuck in a 2v3, as much fun as it is to win them from the disadvantaged side. They talked about world defense chat channels, and the gist of it is that's something they really miss having in world PvP. But they don't have a good solution because it all kind of falls apart with cross realm zones and sharding. So basically, you don't want to be able to look at a map and say, hey, there's world PvP happening down in Hillsbrad Foothills, and you get all the way to Hillsbrad Foothills, and all the world PvP is in somebody else's, cross realm zone. It's in somebody else's shard. It's on a server that you were on before, but you're not on there now. So they don't have a good plan for that, and it sucks for world PvP, but that's a lot of the gist of this Q&A is, sucks to be into world PvP. Talked about arena participation. Somebody asked them what their plan was to increase arena participation above 2,600. They said that arena participation is actually pretty good right now. I did laugh out loud a little bit when I heard that, but I mean, they have the numbers and I don't, so they must be right. There must be some other reason why trying to find teams feels so hard right now. Maybe it's me. But they did say that arena participation is actually pretty good right now. The smaller ladder regarding titles, because right now that's the main metric that players have for estimating how big the ladder is they look at titles and they say, oh my gosh, only 3 people got this thing that is top 1%. There must be only 300 people on the ladder, etc., etc. They say that the reason that there's a smaller ladder for the titles is because of their smaller seasons. The extra season length tends to build up the size of the ladder, so having the seasons end earlier like they're doing in Legion means it's just a smaller overall season. They do say they're having better week-for-week participation than Warlords. At week 12 of Legion season whatever, they say there is higher participation than at week 12 of any Warlord season. So they do still want to increase participation, and they're looking into feedback regarding end-of-season rewards, but they didn't give us anything really concrete. That was my biggest disappointment. I really kind of hoped that they had something really exciting up their sleeves as far as incentivizing ladder participation, lower and mid-range, and even high-range ratings. I really wanted more rewards stuck in the ladder. I understand that kind of system overhaul is something that might have to wait for a future expansion, and that they're looking into other ways to incentivize arena participation beyond just sticking shiny stuff on the ladder. So let's talk about that. At this point, they put Holinka back wherever they put him, and they brought out Jeramy... What was his name? Jeramy McIntyre. I was looking at it just a second ago. He is their WoW Esports top dude in charge of WoW Esports, presumably. So they said that last year was a great year for WoW Esports. They showed us a cute little movie that they made about the last year's BlizzCon finals. They didn't have any sound, but you can go look it up on YouTube. It's got Rich Campbell voicing it over, which makes it pretty great. So last year was a great year for WoW Esports. Going into this year, they're going to continue the trend of no rating requirement qualifiers. So if you want to get an arena team together and you want to go fight to be, part of the BlizzCon championships, you don't have to have any rating. You can give it a go. You're probably, unless you are a top-rated player, you are probably going to get squished quite quickly. But hey, it might be fun, and maybe you queue into Sea-Doo. I think that's kind of the general gist there. So they're continuing with that. The next thing is they're increasing the number of qualifier cups from 3 per region. So last year there was 3 qualifier cups in NA and 3 in EU. They're going to 5, so 10 total between NA and EU, which is pretty exciting. And they're moving forward with a point system to determine the regional slots and seeding. So instead of having those qualifier cups, just kind of the winners go to the regionals, as you compete in qualifier cups, you will earn points based on how you finished in those cups. And then at the year when it's time for regionals, the teams with the most points are going to get to go to regionals. And of course, the teams with the most points are going to be top seeded in that tournament. So that was pretty exciting. And then the next exciting announcement is that community tournaments, such as GCD TV, are also going to be able to hand out points. Approved community tournaments. Your community tournament has to apply and then get approved to be able to hand out these points. But basically GCD TV winners and then other approved community tournaments, those people are going to have more points to go towards the BlizzCon finals. So now all of a sudden you have this huge incentive for all the people in the pro WoW esports scene to be competing in all of these tournaments. There's definitely a big drive there, so that should really get participation up. And I think that having those tournaments all the time, because that's the next big exciting piece of news, but having those that greater number of WoW tournaments with all of these big names that you've come to know and get excited for competing in them because they really want that top seeded spot. That's going to get more people watching PvP, talking about PvP, and hopefully playing PvP, because I need me some partners. And then, of course, the next part of that is those qualifier cups are going to be happening throughout the year. They're not going to happen all in one big bunch right at the end. They're starting in April. Next month is going to be the first BlizzCon 2017 qualifier cup. So between that and community tournaments, they say that it's all going to add up to a tournament, a WoW Esports official tournament, more or less every second weekend. Which, if that's true, that is the most exciting thing I've heard all day. I love watching WoW Esports. It is so much fun. It is so inspiring. It's so great to be able to follow players and pick your favorites and get really excited when they win, and watch the really great players play, try and decipher tips from them. It's so much fun, and if that's really happening all year, I think that's the best thing that came out of this whole announcement. So continuing on with the WoW Esports overhaul, there are going to be more teams at regionals and more teams at the finals. So they published this delightful infographic to talk about that, basically. NA and EU are going to have 12 teams each at the regionals, up from 8. And then the finals, the BlizzCon finals, like actually on the stage of BlizzCon, are going to have a total of 12 teams. Latin America will now get a dedicated spot, so there is going to be one guaranteed Latin America team on the BlizzCon stage. China is going to be getting 2 spots, and then Korea, Taiwan, and Australia, New Zealand are all going to be fighting for 1 spot, which seems weird to me, but participation must be really down in, Korea and Taiwan, apparently, because that seems bizarre. It's no secret that Chinese players are really big on WoW, and they said that their metrics have esports participation from Chinese teams up a lot over the last year, so it makes sense that they're going to give them extra spots for that. In any case, I can't wait to start watching some WoW Esports. I think that's super cool. I'm really excited for everybody that's going to be competing in them, and I want all the WoW Esports. The last thing, I don't know if they talked about this on the broadcast. If they did, I missed it, but it got posted very shortly afterwards. Legion Season 2 is coming to an end. They finally put out the Legion Season 2 ending announcement. I kind of had a feeling they were going to do it during this broadcast or on the same day. So we're approximately 2 weeks away from season end, roughly. So don't be transferring any characters. Do not faction transfer. Do not realm transfer. Just leave them put if you are looking to get PvP titles. And then titles amounts are going to go out approximately 2 weeks after the end of the season. Theoretically, obviously it didn't happen last season, but how many times in a row can they make that mistake? So presumably about a week or so from now, they're going to be releasing the title cutoff ranges, and then after the season ends, they're going to be exact title cutoffs. So everybody that's gunning for some Legion Season 2 titles, best of luck to you. You better get out there and start playing some games, because it's almost over. that was the World of Warcraft PvP info dump. I always feel like they go into these Q&As. They must get so many questions that they can pretty much say, we want to talk about X, Y, and Z, and then just find questions that talk about those things. And then they really could have just made this like a Overwatch-style dev talk, but having the Q&A format is nice. Was there anything that you guys were hoping that they would talk about that they missed out on? I also want to hear what you guys think about these things that they announced. Are you excited about it? Are you not happy about it? I heard some rumbling on Twitter about people concerned about the overall cash prize pool. They did say there is going to be at least another $25,000 in cash prizes for the BlizzCon tournament to support those extra cups, but they didn't say anything about regionals. I don't think. I'm not really sure how that's going to work. Anyways, I really want to hear what you guys think, so leave that all in the comments, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye!
Hey, kitty. What do we want? Meow. Excuse me?